of the Replacement Level Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Phillips. Today we're going to be talking about some of baseball going on, specifically talking about what is going on with the LA Angels, as we have a special guest, Jeff Fletcher, joining us of the SoCal News Group. So, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Jeff, real quick, how did you get started in all this, in covering baseball and then being a writer and kind of getting connected with or getting a job with the SoCal News Group?
Well, I was probably 14 years old or so when I decided that I wanted to be a baseball writer. I loved baseball and I was pretty good at writing. And I figured they got to pay somebody to do that, so I pretty much set myself on that path. I went to Ohio University, go Bobcats, and they have a really good journalism school there. So I pretty much started preparing myself for that career right in college, and I started off at the Los Angeles Times, where my first job was. I covered some high school sports, small college sports. I went up to the San Francisco area, where I got a job covering Major League Baseball. Finally, I covered the Giants and the A's for about 12 years, and then I had another job at a thing that doesn't exist anymore called Fan House, which was sort of like The Athletic before The Athletic. And I did that for a few years, and then I got hired to cover the Angels for the SoCal News Group in 2012, before the 2013 season, and I've been doing that ever since.
Awesome. So now you said you basically settled on this career path when you were 14. Was the Angels like your dream team that you want to cover, or was there a different team that you like, this is the team I want to cover because this is the team that I love and I follow?
Well, believe it or not, even though I did grow up in Ohio, my favorite team when I was a kid was the Mariners. So,
Really?
yeah, it was just, I was 9 years old and they had the All-Star game there that year, and I
Yeah.
thought they had cool uniforms. So that's how a 9-year-old picks a favorite team. Uh, so I was a huge Mariners fan. But then when I decided I wanted to do it for a job, I didn't care what team I covered, because you can't really be a fan of the team anyway. So it doesn't even matter. And now I'm not even a Mariners fan. I'm not a fan of any team anymore. It's my job, and I root for what works best for me, basically, which is the good stories, that I want to see, or if, I want to cover the playoffs because I need to get some extra Marriott points, then I root for the team to get to the playoffs. And if I don't want to go to the playoffs because I have a vacation that I want to take, then it's better for me that they lose. So it's all about me, basically.
Okay, awesome. So I'm also a Mariners fan and kind of a little bit similar.
No,
I'm sorry?
no way. Really?
Yeah. Kind of similar because I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana, born and raised, and a lot of people always ask me like, why are you a fan of them? Because Midwest team. Why wouldn't you be for Indiana specifically? The Cubs is like the number one team, and then it'd be the Reds would be the second best team. But I actually got back when cereal boxes gave prizes and toys in them and everything. I got a box of Wheaties, and they're giving out baseball posters, and I want to say it was like I think Mike Piazza was one, Ken Griffey Jr. was another, maybe Bonds, and there's a fourth, and I forget who. But my dad was a Mets fan, so like I wanted a Piazza poster because like my dad loves the Mets, and like Piazza was great. And I ended up getting stuck with a Ken Griffey Jr. poster, and that's how I got started as being a fan of the Seattle Mariners too. So that's pretty cool that not only are we both Mariners fan, but like both Midwest kind of kids that
Yeah.
love to team out on the opposite end of the coast as well. It's pretty
They were
awesome.
pretty terrible for most of my life growing up as a fan of them. And they finally, the 95 season when they made the playoffs and all, that was one of my last years ever following them, because it was 97 when I started as a baseball writer. So that was sort of the end of my life as a baseball fan. So they sort of took me out on top, and then I was done with them. So,
That's awesome. That's the way everybody wants to go. Just go out on top, right? So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
fantastic. So Jeff, you have a book out called Sho-Time, which is all about Shohei Ohtani. Um, Tell us a little bit about it for those who haven't read it just yet, and then also, how did you get started or wanted to write the novel?
Well, it is basically the story of Shohei Ohtani's baseball career, starting when he was in Japan, growing up in high school, playing for the fighters in Japan for 5 years, and then the whole process of coming to the major leagues and picking the Angels, and then the ups and downs of his first few years with the Angels, which a lot of people may have forgotten about because they knew that he showed up and he was great, and then he sort of disappeared for a little while because he was hurt and inconsistent, and then all of a sudden, in the fourth year, he was great again. But there was a lot that happened in years 1, 2, 3 that got him to year 4, and hopefully this book, catches everybody up on all that missed all that. And the paperback version now has an update on year 5, which was 2022, and the WBC. So anybody who just wants to sort of know how Shohei Ohtani got to be what he is, this is definitely the book they should read. And certainly there's a good chance he's going to be on another team coming up next year. So hopefully the fans of that team, whatever team it is, will want to pick up the book to sort of get caught up.
Okay. Now, obviously, you said the book paperback version ends at the 2022 season. Is there going to be another update to the book that includes this previously ended season of 2023?
Not right now. There's a Japanese version I'm working on right now that will go all the way through, his signing with a new team. So that's, not going to be available till next year. But as far as the English version goes, the most updated version is through the WBC.
Okay, perfect. Was it a lot of fun, like talking with Shohei, obviously, and kind of getting to know him more and learning about his background and stuff, or was it just kind of like, man, this is a lot of work?
Well, it was definitely fun. It was a good experience to write a book, and he's a great subject. I didn't really get to know him, quote unquote, that well because he doesn't really sit down and do, really reflective interviews. It's
Okay.
pretty much you talk to him when he's talking about the games that he's played in or that kind of thing. So most of what you learn about him is from other people that you talk to about him. So, I do feel like I know more about him than 99% of other people, but that's still not nearly as much as I would like to know about him.
Okay. So you said you've been covering the Angels for quite some time now. What is it like kind of covering two maybe like the best kind of players in the game of baseball right now in Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani?
I mean, it's pretty incredible. I try not to take it for granted. They're two very different players. Otani has obviously done something that we haven't seen anybody do. And I would even argue that he's doing something that Babe Ruth didn't even do. Because Babe Ruth didn't even want to be a two-way player. It was sort of like an accident that he was a pitcher and then he realized he could hit and then he didn't want to pitch anymore. And there were a couple of years where he was in transition where he did both, but that was sort of just a part of getting from A to B, not really the planned destination as it is with Ohtani. So I would say that what Ohtani's done is not like anything, and it's really incredible. And as for Mike Trout, I mean, I think the great thing about him was he just never had a bad year, and even a lot of other really good players that we would think of in as MVP caliber players still would have bad years occasionally. Christian Yelich was an MVP, and he had some bad years.
Yeah.
Cody Bellinger was an MVP, and he definitely had some bad years. And Mike Trout really this year that he in 2023 was his worst year, and he had an injury. He's had a lot of injuries lately, but even in his worst year, he had about an 850 OPS, which is still all-star caliber player.
Right.
It's just not an MVP caliber player, but still, this was his worst year. Every other year, he's been over 900, which is ridiculous. And I think we've all been disappointed that he's been hurt the last few years, him especially. So I think that we'd like to see, him get back to being what he was before all these injuries. He's still 32 years old, so it's not too late for him. But definitely his career's taken kind of a little bit of a downturn, but still first ballot Hall of Famer whenever he's done. It's just we'd like to see him play the way he did before.
Yeah, absolutely. Like injuries to any player is not fun, just because like they're must see TV and everything. When they're hurt, it takes away from the game experience and it just takes away from like the overall enjoyment of the game. What I know, Otani's possibly going to be leaving LA this offseason, maybe not, maybe returns. But what is like your expectation of Trout and Otani, like their next move?
Well, there's no next move for Trout. He's still got 7 years left on his deal with the Angels, and he's not going anywhere. I mean, technically, he could request a trade, but it'd be pretty tough for the Angels to trade him just because he's 7 years at $36 million a year, and he's been hurt the last 3 years in a row. That's not an easy player to trade. And
Sure.
you know, are the Angels going to want to pay half or two-thirds of his salary to have him play for somebody else and not even get a bunch of good prospects back? That doesn't look very good. And I don't even know that Mike Trout would like to have everybody see that he's so not worth his contract anymore that the Angels have to pay his salary. So I think he just wants to stay and get himself healthy and get back to be the player that he was and help the Angels win. So he's not going anywhere. As for Otani, he's a free agent. We all know that the Angels have not won since he's been there, and we know that he would like to win. So obviously that doesn't bode well for them re-signing him. But he is also very comfortable with the people he's around, the atmosphere he's in. The Angels have basically bent over backwards to do anything that he wants. They let him determine everything about his workload and his schedule and when he pitches and when he hits and when he talks to the media and everything is just catered around him. And it's a pretty low pressure environment he's got here with the Angels. It's not like playing for the Yankees or Red Sox. So I think all that stuff he likes. So I wouldn't totally rule out him re-signing with the Angels. People ask me this all the time. I say there's about a 30% chance that he re-signs with the Angels. So it's definitely not the most likely, but it wouldn't. It's also likely enough that it wouldn't totally shock me.